All right, good morning, freshmen, or I guess good afternoon now. Happy Tuesday. Today we're going to start our poetry unit, and that's going to be your second to last unit of the entire year. So this is going to take us until about May 8th, and then after that we'll have one more unit, and then we'll be done for the year, which is kind of exciting. So basically, for talking about poetry, I'm going to start by talking about each week we will focus on a different aspect of poetry, and then at the end you guys are going to be responsible for creating your own poetry collection. So this week we're going to talk only about style and an author's style when they're creating poetry and what style does when it comes to poetry and all the different aspects of it. And I'm going to read to you Robert Frost's poem Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening to kind of help explain different elements of style. And then you have an assignment using Edgar Allan Poe's really famous poem, The Raven. So that's what this week is going to look like for you guys. That's your only assignment, is the assignment that has to do with The Raven, Poe's poem. And then you also have a note sheet that goes along exactly with the slideshow that's posted in Classroom. So we're going to go through this entire slideshow this week, and then that note sheet that's posted in Classroom is also due this week. So due on Monday, a week from yesterday, is your The Raven assignment, as well as this note sheet filled out. So for the note sheet, I really just want you guys to put in as much or as little as will be helpful to you when you guys take a quiz on this at the end of the unit. So any information that will be helpful for you to look back at and have all in one place, so that when you take the quiz, you're not trying to flip around through online slides, through stuff in Classroom, you're not trying to look stuff up. You have access to everything in one place. That'll make it easier on you. So that's your only work that you're doing this week. So it should be pretty easy workload-wise, but every single day this week I'm going to post instruction, and I'm also going to kind of elaborate on different aspects of poetry that you will be tested on and that you'll have to write poetry using. So it's really important that you understand these different elements and make sure that you're grasping the stuff we go through. So please make sure you take time every day to watch these videos. They should never be longer than 10 minutes or 15 minutes, maybe at the most. And then on Thursday of this week and Thursday every week, I will host a Zoom session similar to last week, where if you have any questions, you need anything clarified, or you just want to see me and your other classmates and talk for a while, that'll be from about 2 to 3 every Thursday. So that's what you can expect. Let's get started. So I'm going to first read Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, and then we will talk about style. And today we're specifically going to look at diction and syntax, which are two different aspects of an author's style. So Robert Frost is a really famous poet. He wrote in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Some of you are probably familiar with his work. You've probably heard his name before. He has many famous poems. This one is really, really well known. It's pretty short, and he does a really good job of kind of setting the scene for us. He uses a lot of imagery and a lot of figurative language. Those are also elements of style, so we'll be using this poem a lot this week. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So that's Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, and I'm going to talk about a few different aspects of that poem. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is style, and that's what we're going to be focusing on this entire week. So we're going to talk about 5 different aspects of style, but style itself is an overarching term that refers to the way the author uses different elements of language to kind of create meaning and theme and to give their perspective and to show their voice and stuff like that throughout their writing. So that's essentially what style is. It's just the way that the author uses language to write. It's their specific method that works the best for them in getting their point across. So some authors, their style, they use a lot of rhyming. They use really, really long poetry, maybe they're really short. Shakespeare style was he had iambic pentameter, which meant all of his lyrics had kind of a rhythm. They kind of, every other syllable was a downbeat, and we'll talk about that more when we talk about sonnets. But every poet has a style. They have a specific way that they write. You all have styles. You all have specific ways that you write that gets your meaning across. It shows your personality. It shows your perspective. It's just the way that you write and the way that you use language to express your purpose. So there's 5 main different ways that you can use style. And an author uses style through their diction, through their syntax, through figurative language, through imagery, and through their overall tone. And these 5 elements which make up style help the author convey their meaning. They help the theme become really clear to the reader. They help convey the author's perspective and the author's attitude toward whatever it is they're talking about. And ultimately, they help convey the author's voice. And remember, we've talked about voice before. That's just the way an author's personality shines through their work, and it helps us understand better the perspective the author is coming from. So an example of that would be Edgar Allan Poe. He's really well known for really dark poetry. It's really dreary. It's really gruesome. All of that is just written on Word. We understand that it's dark and dreary through the way that he writes it, through the words that he used, through the themes of the poem, stuff like that. We don't think it's a happy poem when we read it. We know right away that it's going to be sad, that it's going to be kind of dark, and that's because of his style choices. So the first style choice that we're going to talk about is an author's diction. And diction is just word choice. All it means is word choice. So if an author uses really short, crisp words so that their poem sounds really short and really kind of upbeat, like think of Dr. Seuss, where his poems are all really short. They're kind of really compact. He uses words that are sometimes made up, but for the most part, the words are really upbeat. They have kind of a little clip to them that makes it a lot more fun and a lot happier to read. Whereas like Edgar Allan Poe, for example, he uses long, drawn-out words. He uses words with many syllables. He uses words that kind of make you feel dark and dreary when you read it. So when we're looking at this poem, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, Frost's poem, his word choice kind of has to do with maintaining his rhyme scheme. So I will read this first stanza again to kind of give you an example of that. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. So he had to use those specific words to maintain that rhyme scheme and to maintain that rhythm. If he'd use a different diction, it wouldn't come across the same way. It wouldn't have that same sound. Diction also has to do with setting the tone in that, like I said, sometimes you have really long, drawn-out words that make it really sad, make it sound really dark. Sometimes you have really short words that make it more choppy, that make it kind of more upbeat. It also helps with maintaining, rhyme schemes and rhythm schemes and the sound that the author's trying to convey. A lot of sound gets conveyed through poetry. Think of music. If it's a sad song or a happy song based on the music that surrounds it, even if you're not listening to the lyrics. The same goes with poetry, where the word choice and how they use the words, the diction, really helps us understand better what kind of mood the author is trying to get across without us necessarily having to analyze it deeply. We can kind of tell right away that it's more serious or that it's more happy, stuff like that. So that's what diction is all about. So an author just uses specific words to portray the specific feeling that they want to get across. That's where word choice, especially diction, is important in poetry. So think about, for example, like rap. They use a lot of slang. They use a lot of maybe more curse words. It comes across as a lot more direct and really blunt, and that's intentional. They want you to kind of feel shook by their language, right? And then think of kind of more poetic, like Shakespeare, where it's really drawn out. It's very poetic, very romantic. That helps us better understand the characters there and kind of their personalities. So once again, just to summarize, all that diction is word choice. It's just the way that an author uses words to kind of get their meaning across, to help us better understand the tone of the poem, to help us better understand the setting, whatever it is. Even if it's just diction used to maintain a rhyme scheme, diction is just the specific words the author is choosing to use to help their poem make more sense. And then the second aspect of style I want to talk about today is syntax. And syntax is the way that the words and the language is used to form the poem. So it influences how the poem is read, and that also has to do with diction. These two things go hand in hand. So diction is the specific words that are chosen. Syntax is just the way that they are connected to create a thought. So syntax would be Frost's choice to stop the first line of the poem after whose woods these are, I think I know, and then start a new line by saying his house is in the village, though. He could have made that all one line, but he didn't want it that way. He wanted to have it more broken up. He wanted to maintain a certain rhyme scheme, so he split it there. That's syntax. It's just kind of the way that the author uses the language and uses the words and rearranges them to create a certain order, to create a certain rhyme scheme. And that also helps us better understand the tone and the mood. So another example of syntax would be, again, think Dr. Seuss, where he will even make up words, that's his diction, to maintain a specific kind of flow throughout the entire poem, to maintain a rhyme scheme, to keep it happy and to keep it upbeat. But the way he uses those words and where he uses them to maintain that is the syntax. So the diction is the what, and the syntax is the where and the why when it comes to word choice. So they go together hand in hand. You can't have one without the other, but they have two separate roles. Diction is the words themselves, what the author chooses to incorporate into the poem to maintain whatever thing it is they're using them for, whether it's rhyme scheme, whether it's getting a mood across, whether it's just because they want it to come across as really dark. And syntax is where they choose to use it in the poem and the way they choose to arrange the poem, the rhyme scheme they choose to use, all that kind of stuff, in order to have those words have the meaning they want them to have. So hopefully that makes sense a little bit on the difference between diction and word choice and the difference between diction and syntax. So if you have any questions about that, you may email me. One example to think about for syntax is think of the way that Yoda talks, where he kind of puts the last half of the sentence at the front of it. like do or do not, there is no try. That's a very specific style that is Yoda's syntax. It's the way that he organizes the words to get his meaning across. It's unique to him. It's kind of like his calling card. It's how we recognize Yoda's voice. So that's syntax. And then diction, again, is just word choice. But they both go hand in hand. So that's kind of what that is. Any questions about that, like I said, you can comment or email me. I will talk more about diction and syntax. We're just going to build on everything as we go through this week. Tomorrow we will talk about imagery, and then Thursday we'll talk about figurative language, and Friday we'll talk about tone, and then we'll be done talking about style and the different elements of style. But once again, just to reiterate, diction is word choice, the specific words the poet chooses to use to convey their meaning, to convey their tone, their attitude, to help the reader understand the poem better. And syntax is the way they choose to use those words. So syntax is influenced by diction. It's just the way that the author organizes the language to help us better understand their perspective. So I know I kind of rambled there. I'm stuck in quarantine, same as you guys. This is the first time I've spoken today, so I'm just getting all my words out right now and rambling a little bit, but hopefully you understood that. I will put a link to Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening up in Classroom with this video so you can watch it if you want to. I'm taking everything from your class textbook, so if you want to come in and check out a textbook, that's also fine if that would help you follow along better. Otherwise, that is it for today. I'm looking forward to this poetry unit with you guys. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, have a good Tuesday. Bye.